On popular demand, John Brzezenk has finally created his own YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed to him, please go over there and subscribe to his channel. But before that, watch this video. A lot of interesting things to discuss. Welcome arm wrestlers, I'm Pradeep from Arm Wrestling News, and today we are going to discuss if John Brzezenk in his prime, which could have been anywhere between 1990 to 2010, could he have beaten this 175 kilos Levan that 6-0 Dave Chaffee on September 5th? This is a question that has created a lot of hype recently, and I will give some of that credit to myself. These prime versus prime questions, they have oversaturated on Facebook, but they are still kind of new on YouTube. So hopefully John is going to make a response video about that, and if he does, there is one thing that I'm completely sure he's going to say, and that is that he would have tried to grab Levan low by his wrist, tried to negate his massive hand, applied a ton of side pressure and forced him on his bicep in a hook. We already know that that would have been John's plan if this John versus Levan match was to happen. But is that possible? We will discuss this from my point of view. First of all, we need to understand when was John Brzezenk in his prime. Was it in early 90s or early 2000s or maybe some other time? The answer to this question is very simple. John Brzezenk has himself said many times that he was fearless, fast and at his best in his early or mid 20s. So that would be somewhere around 1987 to 1993. So I think when the question is only about John's own performance, there should be no argument. We have to believe whatever he is saying. So now we are talking about a 25-year-old John Brzezenk who weighs less than 200 pounds against Levan who weighs nearly 400 pounds. So now all the claims that John could have bulked to 300 pounds, they are all out of the window. Ryan Bowen said that John could have bulked to 140 kilos and beaten Levan. Ryan, you should know more about PEDs. PEDs are no magic pills that can give you any desired weight that you want without having the frame for it. Denis Siplenkov weighed 140 kilos and John Brzezenk is the same height, but I think he wouldn't even be able to walk at 140 kilos. So the first point or assumption that I want to make is that John Brzezenk, right-handed in his prime, pound for pound, could be as strong as Oleg Zok left-handed. Before his accident, Oleg Zok was easily beating the likes of Andrei Pushkar, Dmitry Trubin and Vitaly Liletin while only weighing 85 kilos. Maybe John Brzezenk could have done the same while he was weighing 85 kilos or 90 kilos. But I have no proof to believe that John was one bit stronger than Oleg Zok pound for pound. And if you ask me, when it comes to the strongest pound for pound arm wrestlers, Oleg Zok is by far the number one in my books. Number two isn't even close. And still, I think there is no way that at Oleg's level of strength, you could do anything with this version of Levan. At number 2, we are going to discuss the claim that John Brzezenk has been slaying giants like Richard Lupkis and Cleve Dean. So surely he could have beaten Levan. When I talk about the advancement of level in arm wrestling and strength sports in general, I mean the super heavyweights by that. I think the Engin Terzis and the Cobra Rhodes were better than the lightweight class even today. But this is not the same with heavyweights. Super heavyweight competition has evolved a lot in every strength sport. Levan isn't the same as Richard Lupkis or Cleve Dean. Lupkis and Cleve, they had only one move, and that is it. And having one move in a super match is a nightmare for any arm wrestler. And Richard Lupkis has even claimed that he has more wins on John than what John has on him. I will ask you guys one question. Name one 180 kilo guy from the 80s or the 70s that looked fit, that could even walk properly. I'm sure you couldn't find one. When you see a 180 kilos Levan raging across the table like a bull, you need to understand that 180 kilos was not a healthy competitive guy's weight 30 or 40 years ago. You were lucky if you could get yourself to the table at that weight. Let's understand this with some examples of strongmen. A few decades ago, strongmen were lighter than 150 kilos. And now they have pushed their body weight to even further than 200 kilos. And they still look more fit than the strongmen 30 years ago. They are still fit enough to smash world records. In today's world, the strongmen guys that we don't even know about, that are not even top 50 or top 40, they all have smashed every single world record that stood 40 years ago. What could have been a world record few decades ago will not even give you second last position in today's competition. Same goes for bodybuilding. Lou Ferrigno was the first monster that weighed that much. Now everyone is bigger with less body fat. And if you look at the sports where the older generations claim that their generation was better, you will see one simple pattern. Really simple. All those sports are where there are no numbers and it is impossible to compare two people. Like boxing. Muhammad Ali is going to be the best boxer forever because there are no numbers to compare. Bodybuilding people are forever going to say that Arnold is or was the best bodybuilder because there are no numbers to compare, not even the higher body weight with the lower body fat. Basketball. Michael Jordan will forever be the greatest because again, no numbers. Arm wrestling. John Brzenk will forever be the GOAT because again, there are no numbers. And Michael Phelps isn't the GOAT because he's the GOAT or because he's fast in the swimming pool. Michael Phelps is the GOAT because in swimming, there are numbers to prove that. There are world records to prove that. Usain Bolt isn't the GOAT because he's fast. He's the GOAT because there are numbers and world records to prove that. If there were no numbers and sprinting was only about winning, Carl Lewis or Michael Johnson would still be holding the GOAT title. Same thing with strongmen. There are very few events related to strength where the world record hasn't progressed, like shot put or discus throw, but then that's about it. Every sport has progressed in the super heavyweight division, but surprisingly, not boxing, not bodybuilding, not basketball, not arm wrestling. Nobody is going to tell you this one simple fact. And it is impossible to replace the GOATs in any sports where there are no numbers. I have just given you 4 examples and you can look for any such sports and you will find the same pattern. The GOATs would be the athletes that have competed 20-30 years ago. I always give this one example to everyone about this conversation. If 20 years from now, there is a new face of arm wrestling, a new brand ambassador of the sport, and the next generation is claiming that Devon isn't the man anymore, they will be facing the same backlash that you would be facing when you try to say that there are better players in the market than Muhammad Ali, than John Brzenk, than Michael Jordan, than Arnold. And maybe we are going to be equally upset when someone is going to claim that our hero Devon isn't the man anymore when it comes to promoting the sport. So trust me on this, Devon is going to be the best ambassador of the sport forever because there are no numbers to compare. It is really difficult to accept changes, more difficult than we can assume. Now coming to the Dave Chaffee match, I said that nobody has beaten Dave like that. Neil Pickup corrected me that Travis has beaten Dave easier than that, which I totally agree with. I totally forgot about that match. Now Travis Bagent in that match pinned Dave Chaffee even before the ref said go, both times. But I believe that Travis could have done the same. He could have beaten Dave any position that day. It wouldn't have mattered. But the thing is that 2016 version of Travis would have run over any version of John Brzenk in less than a second. Even during mid 2000s when John was near his peak, Travis had countless dominant wins over John. It wasn't even close in many matches. In 2016, Travis was a completely different animal. And I know that by looking at his match with Jerry Cadret. He shoulder pressed Jerry off the go. When a top roller shoulder presses you off the go, when a top roller shoulder presses a shoulder presser, a flop presser, you know it is for real. But like Neil Pickup said, Levan did it in a more impressive way. John Brzenk himself said that he couldn't have beaten Dave Chaffee if it wasn't for the prior Denis Siplenkov match that got Dave Chaffee completely gassed out, and he still had a war with John. Now, I know that that was an older John, but I think the 2021 Dave Chaffee could have given a really good fight to any version of John Brzenk. The fourth thing that we are going to discuss today is jobs and steroids. People say that John Brzenk had a job and Levan is just an arm wrestler, so he can focus more. So if I have a job and I lose to you, is it your fault that I had less time to prepare? I don't think so. Having a job or having less time to train are baseless excuses. And steroids. Steroids have been in existence for more than 5-6 decades now. Surely they are way better now than what they used to be. But when we say if John had access to the same gear as Levan, he would have been better, we are completely ignoring the core of this comparison. That is the Prime John versus Prime Levan, not the 2021 technically trained and enhanced John versus Levan. I agree with very few things that Michael Todd says, but his claim that heavyweights have evolved and there are many guys including him that would beat Prime John, I totally agree with this claim of his. Devon Larratt believes the same.
The sport has gone to a level that is so high, and that representation is LEVAN SAGINASHVILI. That is the highest level of arm wrestling we have ever witnessed in the history of arm wrestling.
Right now, we are living in a world where the same guys who are demanding a new 125 kg weight category because there is no way that 130 kilos guys can beat LEVAN. Those are the same guys who are claiming that a 95 kilos John Brzeink could have beaten LEVAN. And then after that, they demand a new weight category which is above 125 kilos. Or they even say that LEVAN should not be allowed to compete because he's over 150 kilos. Trust me on this, we are long past those times when middleweights can beat super heavyweights. Just imagining that 200 pounds goat 30 years ago could beat a 400 pound number one guy today is crazy to me. In 90 kilos, Rustam Babayev had more wins on John Brzeink. And a jacked version, a 100 kilos version of Rustam finishes 8th in top 8 competition today. Last number. Now finally, let's discuss how is this imaginary match going to turn out. LEVAN was only 28 years old when he lost his last match. John is obviously going to try something that no one has been able to do in last 5 years. That is to hook LEVAN. Which he won't be able to because at a certain elite level, it is impossible to negate your opponent's ace move. I will give you an example. It is impossible to hook Vitaly Leletin, so you have to top roll him to beat him, even though he's an ace top roller himself. Similarly, it is impossible to top roll LEVAN. You have to hook him to beat him. Let's say even if John gets him in a hook, then what? It would be impossible for John to move him in a hook. Like I said, John used to beat Cleve Dean and Richard Lupkis by taking their hand, not in a hook, because there was too much muscle, too much weight to move. Cleve Dean weighed over 500 pounds. So in my opinion, John Brzeink cannot force a hook or a top roll on LEVAN. And even if LEVAN intentionally allows him to get there, it would not be anything more than a warm-up practice session for LEVAN. Whether you guys agree or disagree with this little statement of mine, little assessment of mine, leave your opinions in the comment section below. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel. I have to cross 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year. Share it with someone who thinks like you. My name is Pradeep and I thank you so much for watching.